Thank you. Good morning. My name is Brooke Kanata, and I am the president of the Board of Trustees here at CUC in Paramus. We realize,
Good morning. My name is Dawn Walter, and I'm the president of the Board of Trustees at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood.
We realize that some of us may come to these shared ventures between CUC and USR with some preconceived notions about each other. We have years of living near one another, being separated by town, by style, by leadership. Those differences are real. We can see it even in our approaches to COVID. We have different protocols and risk tolerances.
And yet, we have so many things in common. Some of you may not know that in our earliest days as congregations, in the very last moments of the 19th century and the first decades of the 20th, we shared ministers who would preach at both congregations. More recently, we've shared a youth program and we have collaborated on RE programming. And throughout all of our history, we have shared our Unitarian Universalist values and a vision of the world lit by compassion and kindness.
This morning, we come together, albeit in a strange way for some of us, some at CUC, some at USR, and some at home, in order to strengthen our ties once more, to deepen our understanding of and appreciation for each other and our shared past and our possible future. If you are new to either congregation this morning, a special welcome to you. We are glad you have found us. Please reach out on Zoom or here in person, and you can stop by here at the Welcome Center here at CUC after the service and ask more about our congregations.
As always, we appreciate your grace and patience with technology and its foibles. Please silence any electronic devices. We're so glad that you have joined us for this unique service with your hearts and minds open and your readiness to celebrate in Thanksgiving.
Please join me in speaking our Chalice Lighting words. They are slightly different than the words used at each congregation typically, so please do look at the screen. We light this chalice for the light of truth which illuminates our minds, for the warmth of love which nourishes our hearts, and for the energy of action which animates our spirits. May this light remind us of our shared dreams and our common humanity as we honor our past, vision for the future, and gather together in the embrace of this healing and hopeful community.
Take a deep breath. Be right where you are, whether you are at home, on Zoom, here in the sanctuary at CUC, or in Anderson at USR. Listen deeply to the sounds of your space. Can you hear others moving? The breath of those nearby? The wind in the trees? The sound of life beyond the walls that enclose you? When you quiet your body and mind, what comes clear in the wide world we share, and what comes clear in the wide world we share and in the depths of our heart? Breathe deeply and be still, here, now, with thanksgiving for this time we share together. Breathe and listen.
Andrée?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yesterday, as the sun set and the temperature dropped, I watched my oldest child run around with friends to celebrate his impending double digits. They ran and they laughed and they chatted on the same land that I did as a child, the sun angling onto their faces the way it did mine in my own childhood. One of his little brothers was there with us while the other attended another birthday party with my father, and my mom took some precious, quiet time at home alone. My multi-generational, non-traditional family was not all there, but running around the dusty ball field, playing foursquare and kickball and downing cupcakes like they were water, were kids from many different economic, racial, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds, and from many different types of families. As I watched these children, not yet youths, run around in the half-light of dusk playing games I played when I was young, I couldn't help but think about what this weekend and this coming week mean, can mean, should mean for all of us. Yesterday was the Transgender Day of Remembrance, a day on which we acknowledge the prejudice and violence that trans folks have suffered and still suffer at the hands of those who would deem them less than worthy, less than whole. This year alone, 47 trans beloveds have been murdered in the United States because of their identity, and around the world that number is tragically higher. It's a stark loss of life, one that should appall and shock any of us who are committed to an embrace and affirmation of all people. These losses can never be changed, but we can change the future.
And this coming Thursday, we celebrate Thanksgiving, a holiday that acknowledges one true moment of mutual care and rejoicing, but a holiday that for too long has been used to twist the historical narrative in order to ignore the truth of settler colonialism, violence, oppression, and the ongoing erasure of indigenous peoples in this land. There are centuries of anguish and pain to reckon with, centuries of choices made that ruined lives and disconnected folks from their ancient home. This week offers us opportunities to see the past and the present most clearly if we are up to that challenging task. This week can, if we let it, hold us to account. This week can ask us, to what do we give our allegiance? What ideals, what people, what ways of being? Who have we chosen to spend our lives with? And what have we chosen to spend our lives doing? Today, here, together, we lift up all the ways that we create family. And even as we do this, even as we recognize and affirm the chosen ties that bind us together tighter than blood ever could, we remember all those ties that were and are broken, willfully and cruelly, in the name of greed and progress and expansion and conquest and religious fervor and fear and hatred. We hold it all here, together, imperfectly. We celebrate, rejoice, give thanks in spite of it all, aware that our journey to self-understanding and an understanding of this world and each other is never done, aware of the challenge and committed to growing and holding complex truths simultaneously. Today, we give thanks for each other, for the possibility of community, for the promise of community. Thank you for being with us this morning.
For the storm we Good morning, everyone. I'm Lenzi, Director of Religious Education at Central Unitarian Church. And the story I'm sharing with you this morning is from this lovely book called Everybody is Welcome by Patricia Hegarty. In a forest clearing, there is a little mouse, dreaming of the future in a great big happy house. Suddenly a frog appears with a sorry tale of woe. My pond, my home is all dried up. I have no place to go. Froggy, please don't worry. You can stick with me. Everything will be all right. Just you wait and see. Let's build a home together. We'll make it big and strong, and once we get started, you won't be sad for long. Everybody's welcome, no matter who they are, wherever they may come from, whether near or far. Please help us, cried the rabbits. We've had an awful scare. An eagle chased us from our home. Do you have room to spare? Everybody's welcome. If you need a place to hide, come and help us build this house. You'll all be safe inside. Some of us can form a chain and all work as a team. We'll build a shelter stick by stick, following our dream. I'm all alone, cried the big brown bear with teardrops in his eyes. I frighten other people because of my great size. Come along and join us, bear. A great big guy like you is just what we've been missing. There's so much you can do. Everybody's welcome, and all can play their part. Just look at Big Brown Bear, he's already made a start. Flapping and fluttering, a flock of birds arrive. Someone chopped down our tree, how will we survive? If we all work together, no task is too great, even if some helpers arrive a little late. And the news will soon spread for miles around of what we are building, a home safe and sound. As the rain clouds gather and a dark and stormy sky, the animals are building a roof to keep them dry. When our house is ready and everything's complete, we'll all live together and life will be so sweet. Our home will be so happy, and we'll fill it up with song. Everyone who lives here will know that they belong. Please repeat with me. Everybody's welcome. No matter who they are, wherever they may come from, whether near or far. Blessed be.
Thank you.
Good morning again. At CUC, our mission is to welcome all into a home of spiritual diversity that challenges us to become our best selves, to minister to one another in love, and to serve the greater community.
At USR, our mission is to grow in mind and spirit, to act with love for justice, and to transform ourselves and world.
Although different in their particular language, our mission statements are similar at their core. We share a commitment to building the beloved community. The work of fulfilling the heart of our shared mission never stops, and it is only made possible by our gifts of time, talent, and material support.
Gathering together in a shared service and collecting our offering together affirms the vital contributions each of us makes to our congregations and to the larger community. On your screen, you'll see the instructions on how to give for each congregation. Here at USR this month, we are sharing the plate with Share Incorporated, an organization born from work at this congregation that allows folks to age in place affordably in Bergen County.
Our offering today recognizes all that we have to share with each other. Our offering today celebrates the presence of Unitarian Universalism here in our shared home of Northern New Jersey. Our offering today honors our collective work in creating a more welcoming and better world for all.
The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
After that delightfully rousing music, we enter into some time of meditation, so I'll invite you to take a breath. We'll begin with a moment to share our joys and sorrows. If you are online with us, we invite you to write those into the chat now so that we'll have a chance to read them aloud to the gathered community. For those of us in person at both CUC and USR, we will share the joys and sorrows that have been submitted to us. We'll also share the ones in the chat, and then we'll offer a time for those of us in person who did not submit but want to speak a name aloud into the shared space to do so. So let's take a moment to quiet ourselves, breathing in a breath of love and breathing out a breath of peace.
This Sunday before Thanksgiving, at the cusp of the holiday season, we give thanks for all the ways that we define and shape family, and hold with care those who are struggling at this time. With gratitude, we lift up both our biological and our chosen families, the families we were born into, and those we've intentionally created through love, marriage, birth, and kinship that runs as deep as blood, sometimes deeper. And we acknowledge that there are new shapes families take through aging, illness, death, divorce, and broken relationships. For some, the gap between us within our family have become too wide for those family bonds to remain intact. It's no longer possible to gather as the family we once were. Others find ourselves still struggling to understand what this word family actually means. And yet others have carefully crafted a family by turning to those who offer the love, support, and connection they need. Whatever the shape of your family this holiday season, large or small, familiar or new, may your gatherings bring you comfort. May they bring you joy. May you draw close the most important individuals in your life and find nourishment in your soul. Blessed be.
We have one reading this morning, and it comes from the book of Ruth. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. When they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, so that the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and given them food. So she set out from the place where she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud. They said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight and bear sons, would you then wait until they were grown? Would you then refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me." Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you." When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. So the 2 of them went on until they came to Bethlehem.
I am weary, for I've traveled many miles.
can find many stories in Jewish scripture where the characters embrace a way of being that is outside of the societal expectations for their family or gender roles. This is sending a message. Those family and gender roles are created by human beings and therefore can be broken through and shifted. And Ruth, in the story that we heard earlier, Ruth is one such example. She's no longer tied to Naomi through marriage due to the death of Naomi's husband and Ruth's husband. And Ruth is not expected to stay with her mother-in-law. Yet, despite Naomi's instructions and expectation, Ruth refuses to leave her. Instead, she clings to her, vowing to face an uncertain future together. Wherever you go, I will go, Ruth says. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Where your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Ruth comes not only from a different people than Naomi, but comes from different customs and religious beliefs. And the original Hebrew text doesn't say that she was married. Ruth wasn't married to Naomi's son in the text. That's not the word that was used. But instead, the word that is used is more closely translated as to be lifted up, meaning that she likely did not enter into the relationship with Naomi's son willingly. Other than that, we are not given any other information about her people, their customs, or Ruth's personal history. What we do know is that the prospects are bleak for women at her time and place, facing a future without a husband. And Naomi is in a similar position without her husband, but also being older and beyond childbearing age, which is why she implores both Ruth and Orpah to go home to their own mothers, their own families. And while Orpah takes this advice, Ruth instead decides to face the unknown with her mother-in-law. She is choosing her family when the society of her time tells her she no longer has a family, at least not with Naomi. And this choice, born out of life circumstances, to cling to others in our lives and call them family, even when they might not be traditionally recognized as such, is echoed in real lives, past and present. Making a choice to reject societal norms in place of what one needs to survive and to thrive. In visiting this story, I was thinking of the best-selling memoir of Billy Porter. This book, Unprotected, was recently released, and in it, Billy Porter, who is an actor and singer most well known for his award-winning roles as Lola in the Broadway musical Kinky Boots, and as the role of Pray Tell in the television show Pose. In this memoir, Porter reflects on his experiences growing up and trying to make a name for himself in show business as a Black gay man living with HIV. And in this memoir, he writes, "What is family? Most would say family means a group of people closely related by blood or marriage, as parents, children, uncles, aunts, and cousins. This is the family of the biological kind. By the same token, I've learned in my life experience that family can also be of the chosen kind. As queer people, we very often find that our chosen families are the ones who love us unconditionally and pick up the slack in support of our personal truths and humanity when our biological families don't have the tools." And this sense of a chosen family is held by many in the LGBTQ community who've been rejected or struggle in their relationship with their biological family. The show Pose that Billy Porter is in chooses this as a premise of a large part of the show. One of the show's main characters, Blanca Evangelista, a trans woman, becomes what is called a house mother by getting an apartment and taking in children from the street, other trans and queer youth who don't have anywhere to go for food, shelter, stability, and support. And Blanca in this show becomes the mother of them all, giving them structure, love, and guidance that many of them have never had the privilege to experience. And while this show is fiction, it is based on the real-life experiences of houses which formed in New York City in the 70s and 80s, as LGBTQ folks claimed the chosen families that they needed. Like our animals in The Time for All Ages that Lynn shared. Those without a place to go or family to call their own work together to create a home for all those in need. Ruth, with her husband and father-in-law dead, has no choice about the situation that she faces. Society dictates that she return home to her biological family, but instead she insists that she has a choice about where she goes. So she decides to cling to Naomi, and that is necessary for her life. For Ruth, Naomi is her chosen family.
In 1985, in a comic strip, the author and artist Alison Bechdel invented a minimum ideal against which literature, films, any narrative creative endeavor could be measured. It became known as the Bechdel Test, you may have heard of it, and it assesses the level of representation of women. So the Bechdel Test checks for moments when two women, at least, preferably with names, have an actual conversation with each other and discuss something other than men. It is surprising how many movies fail this test and how much literature throughout the ages does as well. The Bible itself, those scriptures that so many turn to, largely fails the Bechdel test. Women often aren't named or aren't given voices or exist in order to speak about the men whose lives they support. Not so the book of Ruth, which contains one of the very few Bechdel passing interactions in the whole of Scripture. Certainly, at the beginning, as we heard, there is mention of Naomi's dead husband and sons, and of course, lives are determined in part by what happens to those men. But the moment, that bit of interaction, the part that holds truths that even those of us who do not believe in the literal truth of Scripture can believe, that meaningful moment of the story comes when Naomi urges her daughters-in-law to return home and Ruth flat out refuses. No, she says, I will stay with you. And we don't know from the story the world that Ruth has come from. We don't know what awaits her if she were to return. Maybe sorrow and violence, maybe a perfectly lovely life back in the bosom of her blood relations. All we know is that whatever other fate is out there, she's choosing this one. She's choosing Naomi. In a poem that explores this relationship between the two women, Marge Piercy writes, "Yet women have kept it dear for the beloved elder who cherished Ruth, more friend than daughter. Daughters leave. Ruth brought even the baby she made with Boaz home as a gift. Where you go, I go too. Your people shall be my people. I will be a Jew for you. For what is yours, I will love, as I love you. O Naomi, my mother, my sister, my heart." At the season of first fruits, we recall two travelers, co-conspirators, scavengers, making do with leftovers and mill ends, whose friendship was stronger than fear, stronger than hunger, who worked together, walked together, the road of shards, hands joined. Ruth chooses Naomi, and whatever we may think we know about the life that she might otherwise create, we know what she will end up having as she follows Naomi. Uncertainty, fear, in that society, a lack of protection. But she chooses this friendship, this family of the heart. And so deep is the love that later in the story we learn that Ruth's child that she bears becomes understood as Naomi's grandchild, though there is no blood tie between them. And that child, from whom the line of David springs, aligns to Naomi's lineage not because of genetics, but because of this moment in which they have chosen each other as family on this earth. Often I have heard this part of this book used in weddings, perhaps you have as well. And often when I officiate a wedding, I remind the gathered guests that many of us know exactly what it is to be handed a family by life, one we did not choose and would not choose, one that perhaps does not choose us. But I remind them that one of the most beautiful things about this complicated web of interdependence we move in and among is that we do actually get to choose. We can choose to move away from a family that gives us pain, not love, grief, not support. We can choose to move away from a family that does not allow our full flourishing into our own unique humanness. We can choose our Naomi, the ones who love us enough to let us go, who prioritize our wholeness and safety and joy. We can choose the ones whose heart travels with our heart, even if the same blood doesn't pump through our veins. It may require sacrifice and uncertainty and bring fear, but we can choose.
I grew up with a rather narrow definition of family that had been handed to me by my family and by the broader white middle-class culture in which I was raised. As a child and youth, I thought families consisted of a dad, a mom, and their children, along with grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. I knew about a few things like divorce, single parenting, and gay and lesbian parents, but these things did not exist in the families that I knew. And I lacked the imagination to picture families even beyond these few deviations, because most of what I read and watched on television didn't include families with these different shapes that I couldn't recognize. In contrast, a current show called This Is Us portrays multiple generations of a family that is shaped by births, interracial adoption, death, divorce, and more. And a show like this celebrates the real complexity and diversity of families which exist far beyond the narrow definition that I held in my youth. Despite the cultural shift demonstrated in a show like this, and despite my personal experiences which have broadened my own definition of family, I continue to be surprised at how many people still conceive of families in such a narrow way. It's still common for people to not recognize a family outside of what they already know. One example is provided in an episode of This Is Us where the dad takes the 3 children to the set of Mr. Rogers. And as the visiting families are greeted by the crew, one of the crew members mistakes adopted son Randall for another family's child because he is Black and the rest of his family is white. I have encountered numerous examples from my own family. When my daughter was first born, I was living in the city and I used to carry her around in a baby Bjorn, and people would see this baby being carried around by this heavily tattooed androgynous person, and for some reason I still cannot explain, more than one stranger felt compelled to come up to me and ask, "Is that your child?" And this was an experience that my spouse at the time never experienced. This only happened to me. I've encountered the confusion, even by teachers, about my relationship with my own children if they've already met the kid's other mom. My partner and I have been asked if we were sisters, even though we look nothing alike. We're often asked if we want separate checks when we're two clearly queer women out having a date together. All of these instances, many of them microaggressions, all of them are instances of people simply unable to recognize the size and the shape of my particular family. And the thing is, we're missing something when we cannot recognize the full breadth and depth of family experiences from the biological to the chosen. I purposely chose talking about shows from our popular culture to give some of these examples to show how there is broader awareness, but also talk about how we still have work to do. Because by celebrating all these different types of families, like we're celebrating them today, we lift up those family narratives that don't fit inside narrow definitions. And we let others, like my young self, know that there are unlimited ways to experience family. And there is so much beauty and freedom to be found in these families.
I was 29 when I decided that I would go ahead and have children. I hadn't met a man who wanted to spend his life with me, who I also wanted to spend my life with. But I'd always known that motherhood was something I wanted. In spite of growing up in an extended family with little variation beyond the heteronormative mother, father, 1.5 children, possibly a pet, I knew myself to have a choice. Maybe it was down to my Unitarian Universalist AYS upbringing. I honestly don't know. But deep in my heart, I was sure that for me, having children using donor sperm and becoming a single mom was better than marrying someone just for the sake of the children that I wanted. And absolutely, it was better than giving up on my dream of creating life because of some vision of what family should be. Increasingly, I see folks making the choice I did, folks of all genders and sexualities, folks who choose to co-parent as friends but not partners, who choose to adopt or birth children as single folks. Increasingly, I see it among my children's friends. Increasingly, on TV and in our own lives, the wide and beautiful array of families is on display. I chose to have children to grow my family, but I have also known what it is to meet people who become like family. Friends who you click instantly with, and you truly can't remember that you haven't known each other forever and don't already know everything about each other. Partners who come to be quickly and gloriously precious in ways that have nothing to do with a commonality of DNA. Bosom buddies, soulmates, kindred spirits, family of the heart, family by choice. The variety of families in our world is infinite and gorgeous, so much more interesting than a singular vision. And it's possible, these families are possible because love doesn't know blood or genetics. Love doesn't limit itself to those who share our culture or creed or background. Love doesn't confine itself. We confine it when we draw rigid circles around our loving and living. When we make love a weapon, it's giving or receiving, and we make the circle fragile, breakable, and this happens when we insist on things being simple and easy and clear and as they've always been, ordered according to some false view. The truth of being human is that we learn new things, we change, the world changes. The light comes and goes, the temperature drops and rises, and everything is always different. When we can be generous and courageous in our loving and expansive and infinitely stretchable in the drawing of our circles, we can move with those changes. We become nimble. We have the chance to grab at and even create gratitude, joy, healing, and wholeness. This morning, we give thanks for families of all shapes and sizes, families by blood and by heart, by birth and by choice. We give thanks for families of safety, families that understand the complexity of life and face it with vulnerability and strength. We give thanks for families of hope, families that see the future as full of possibility and promise. And we give thanks for families of love, families that know what it is to offer care and support widely, wildly, and wholly. This morning we give thanks together. So may it be. Before we extinguish our chalice, I just want to offer gratitude to all of you, to everyone at CUC, to the CUC choir, to our technology people who made this happen. It has been so good to be with all of you and all of you this morning. Please join in the words for extinguishing the chalice. They'll be on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not our promises to each other, to tend the light of truth and grace within our own hearts, to hold each other with the warmth of love, to transform this world with our energetic action. May these promises be a beacon of hope until we are together again.
Whatever your family looks like, big and boisterous or small and quiet, whatever ties bind you together and hold you in love, whatever hard truths you face together this year, may this week bring joy, laughter, storytelling, and truth-telling, and so much love. Go in peace. Blessed be.
So we'll just say quickly, if you're on Zoom, please stay for coffee hour breakout rooms. Those will be organized momentarily. Folks here at USR, we're doing coffee hour indoors today, though we encourage you to keep up with COVID protocols. Don't lower those masks unless you're literally eating and drinking. And over in CUC?
Over at CUC, similar thing. Please stay for fellowship. Keep those masks and distancing as we all have been doing. Again, so grateful for our partnership today with USR. Thank you to the whole team there and to our music team, our choir for the first time this year, and our tech team back. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna have coffee hour right here.